Welcome back, dear listeners, to the iSquared podcast, where the vast landscapes of imagination are interwoven with the profound teachings of interdependence and impermanence. I'm your host, Jimmy Lau, and I invite you to join me on this very special journey today. In our lives, we all grapple with one central question, a question that has perplexed philosophers, artists, and thinkers for millennia. And today, on the iSquared podcast, we are exploring the ultimate I. Who am I? What does it mean to be an individual in this vast, interdependent universe? How does our understanding of self shape not only our personal lives, but also the societies, cultures, and the very fabric of our global existence? As we peel back the layers of this profound question, we will look into the contrasting philosophies of the East and the West. We will explore how these divergent views of identity are more than mere academic musings. They have, in fact, shaped civilizations, political ideologies, and even the way we interact with one another. The Western world often celebrates individualism, autonomy, and reason, while the Eastern perspective emphasizes harmony, community, and interconnectedness. These two philosophies, seemingly at odds, have created a binary that continues to influence the world we live in, sometimes pulling us apart. So, dear listeners, are you ready to embark on this intellectual adventure to understand the very essence of who you are and how your sense of self fits into the grand tapestry of human existence? Join me as we navigate the complex terrain of identity, bridging the gap between East and West and seeking wisdom in the spaces where they converge. Welcome to the iSquared podcast, where the enigmatic I knows no bound. From philosophy, science, mathematics to society and culture, we will look at them through the lens of interdependence. And now, my dear friends, let's embark on this exploration, and together we ask the question of who am I, starting with the Western philosophy of the self and its emphasis on individualism and autonomy. The Western concept of individualism and autonomy, a cornerstone of Western philosophy, has shaped not only the way we perceive ourselves, but also how we interact with the world. It is a philosophy that places the individual at the center, recognizing each person as unique, self-determined, and independent of collective norms. As we journey through the history of Western thought, we come across a fascinating turning point with the ideas of René Descartes. With his famous proclamation, "I think, therefore I am, cogito ergo sum," he gave birth to a philosophy that continues to echo through the corridors of modern thinking. Imagine for a moment being in the 17th century Europe. The Renaissance is blooming, and the world is slowly emerging from the shadows of the Middle Ages. A new way of thinking is taking shape, a thinking that emphasizes reason, inquiry, and doubt. There comes Descartes, a philosopher, mathematician, and scientist, one of my idols. He was a man deeply troubled by uncertainty. How can we truly know anything? He pondered. What if all we perceive is an illusion? He embarked on an intellectual journey to strip away everything that could be doubted, to reach the core, the essence of certainty with knowledge. He reached a profound conclusion. The very act of doubting, the very act of thinking, proved his existence. I think, therefore I am. It is a declaration that the mind is separate from the body, that our thoughts, our consciousness are ultimately the proof of our existence. This idea rippled through the centuries, inspiring the Enlightenment, shaping political ideologies, and laying the groundwork for individual rights and freedoms. But it also led to something deeper, something more elusive. By placing the individual mind at the center of existence, Descartes sparked a revolution in how we understand ourselves. We were no longer just parts of a divine plan or cogs in a social machine. We were thinking beings, capable of reason, capable of understanding, and most importantly, capable of shaping our own destiny. As the ideas of Descartes continued to resonate, other thinkers began to build upon this foundational concept of the self. Two such philosophers, John Locke and Immanuel Kant, added new dimensions to further shape our understanding of identity. John Locke, an English philosopher, introduced the idea that our identity is formed through our experiences. He believed that we are born as blank slates, and it is the world around us, the experiences we encounter, that shapes us into who we are. In his view, our memories and experiences don't just influence our character, they define it. Immanuel Kant, a German philosopher, he took on a different path. He saw the self as something transcendent, something beyond our experiences. According to Kant, our understanding of the world is structured by the mind's inherent categories. We have both an inner self and an outer self that allow us to become conscious. Our inner self shapes our psychological state and rational intellect, and the outer self includes our senses and instinctual functions. What he focused on is the inner self, which has an absolute inner worth, a value which is beyond price and demands respect. These thinkers, Locke with his emphasis on experience, and Kant with his insight into mind's role in shaping reality, added richness and complexity to the Western philosophy of the self. They challenge us to consider not only what defines us, but also how we perceive and engage with the world. This concept of the self, separate and sovereign, has implications that ripple through our lives even today. From the way we approach education, to how we view success, to our very understanding of what it means to be human, consciousness, and even artificial intelligence. But this perspective is not without its complexities. The celebration of the individual can lead to an intense focus on personal freedom and rights. While empowering in many ways, this focus can also create a sense of isolation, a feeling that we are alone in our thoughts, feelings, and desires. Consider for a moment how this concept of individualism manifests in your life. Do you feel a strong sense of personal autonomy, the ability to make decisions independent of others? Or do you sometimes feel that this emphasis on the self separates you from your community, from the interdependent web of relationships that define our human existence? This idea of independent self permeates everything from our political systems to our economic structures. It shapes our beliefs about success, responsibility, and what it means to lead a good life. Yet, it is important to recognize that this concept of individualism is not universally embraced. In fact, it contrasts sharply with the Eastern perspective of the self, which we will explore in the next segment. But before we dive into that, I invite you to reflect on your own relationship with your identity. How has the Western philosophy of individualism shaped who you are? How has it influenced your values, your goals, and your interactions with others? The conversation, however, doesn't stop here. As we transition to the next segment, we will explore the Eastern perspective, a philosophy that offers a contrasting view, one that emphasizes interconnection and fluidity, challenging the very idea of a separate self. Thank you for listening to the iSquared podcast. Join me after the break as we continue our exploration of who am I from a completely different perspective. Welcome back to our journey, dear listeners. In the previous segment, we explored the Western philosophy of individualism and autonomy. Now, we turn our attention to the East, where the understanding of the self takes a vastly different shape. In Eastern philosophy, the concept of the individual self becomes a bit more elusive. Unlike the West, where the self is seen as an independent entity, the Eastern perspective emphasizes harmony, connection, and fluidity. Let's journey into ancient India, where the philosophies of Buddhism and Hinduism offer a profound perspective on who we are. In Buddhism, the concept of anatta or anatman is a profound teaching that challenges our very understanding of the self. It means no self, and suggests that there is no unchanging, permanent self, soul, or essence within us. Instead, our identity is a constantly changing flow of thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Imagine a river, always flowing, always changing. You can never step into the same river twice, for it is never the same water, nor are you the same person. This metaphor beautifully illustrates the Buddhist understanding of the self. It is an idea that might seem strange or unsettling at first glance, but carries deep wisdom. Our notion of self is an illusion, a temporary construct of the mind. But why would you embrace this idea of no self? What are the implications of understanding our identity as fluid rather than fixed? To understand this, we must first understand the heart of Buddhist philosophy. The Buddha taught that clinging to a fixed idea of the self leads to suffering. It creates attachment, desire, and ultimately dissatisfaction when reality doesn't conform to our expectations. By recognizing that we are like a river, interdependent and impermanent, we free ourselves from the constraints of ego, from the endless desire for more, from the fear of loss. We begin to see that everything is interdependent and that we are part of a vast and intricate web of life. Consider the leaves on a tree, the clouds in the sky, the person sitting next to you. They all exist in relation to one another. They are not isolated or separate, but part of a dynamic whole. The same is true for every one of us. This idea invites us to live with more compassion, more empathy, more awareness. It calls us to be mindful of the impact we have on others and the world around us. It encourages us to let go of rigid ideas of who we think we are and embrace a more opening, accepting, and loving way of being. As we contemplate this concept of no self, we may find that it resonates with our own experiences. We are not the same person we were a year ago, a week ago, or even a moment ago. We are continually growing, learning, and transforming. Our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs shift like the currents of a river. And in recognizing this, we can find a profound sense of freedom and connection. This understanding of the self is woven into various aspects of Eastern culture. Think of the harmony in traditional Japanese gardens, the balance in Chinese Taoism, the emphasis on community and family in many Asian societies. The self is not a solitary figure, but a part of a beautiful, interdependent tapestry. After exploring the transformative wisdom of Buddhism, let us turn our gaze to another ancient Eastern philosophy that offers another profound perspective on the nature of self: Hinduism. In Hindu philosophy, the self is not a separate entity, but part of a grand cosmic dance. The individual soul, or Atman, is a reflection of the universal soul, the Brahman. Imagine a vast ocean, and each of us is a wave within that ocean. Each wave is unique, yet it is part of the same water, the same energy. It rises, it falls, but it never loses its connection to the entire ocean. This beautiful metaphor teaches us that we are all interconnected, all manifestations of the same divine essence. It invites us to see beyond our individual egos, our personal desires and fears, to recognize that we are part of something greater, something eternal. The wisdom of interdependence is not limited to Eastern philosophies alone. In fact, many indigenous cultures around the world have long emphasized a similar understanding of the self. From the Native American tribes to the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, the concept of the individual is deeply entwined with community, nature, and ancestry. The self is not seen as an isolated entity, but as part of a web of relationships that includes family, community, ancestors, and the land itself. Consider the traditions of the Native Americans, who view themselves as stewards of the earth. Their identity is not separate from the rivers, mountains, and forests. It is interdependent with the entire ecosystem. They honor the land as a living being, recognizing that they are part of something greater than themselves. Similarly, the Aboriginal peoples of Australia have a concept known as dream time, which encompasses the spiritual, natural, and moral elements of existence from birth to death. to the creation of everything. In this worldview, every person is connected to the land and the animals and the ancestral spirits. The stories, rituals, and art are a celebration of this intricate relationship. This indigenous wisdom, along with teachings of Hinduism, presents a view of the self that transcends individualism. They remind us that we are part of a grand cosmic dance connected to one another and to the world around us. Contrast this with the Western notion of the self as an independent, self-contained entity, and you begin to see why these philosophies can seem so divergent. But it is not about choosing one over the other, or labeling one as right or the other as wrong. Instead, it is about recognizing the value in both perspectives and seeking a middle way, a path that embraces both the individual and the collective. Join me as we continue to explore the contrasting philosophies of the East and West, seeking wisdom in the spaces where they converge and unraveling the complex, beautiful mystery of who we are. The conversation between East and West is a dialogue that continues to unfold in our globalized world. From the way we approach mental health, to how we understand success, to our definitions of happiness, these contrasting philosophies of the self shape our lives in profound ways. So, dear listeners, as we conclude this segment, I invite you to reflect on your own understanding of the self. How do you navigate the balance between individuality and interconnections? What insights can you draw from both Eastern and Western philosophies? Join me after the break as we continue our exploration into the complexities of identity to take a look at contemporary issues and apply these ancient philosophies to our modern lives. Welcome back, dear listeners, to our exploration of the self. We have contemplated Western individualism and Eastern interdependence, even danced to the rhythm of indigenous wisdom. Now, we turn our attention to the present moment, where the complexity of identity takes on a new dimension in our rapidly changing world. Let's first acknowledge the strength and value of Western individualism. This philosophy emphasizes personal autonomy, self-reliance, and the pursuit of individual goals. It has inspired many of the democratic ideals, innovations, and business ideas that have shaped the modern world. Consider the innovators and the artists who have broken with tradition to create something entirely new. The emphasis on individual rights and freedoms has allowed for creativity, innovation, personal growth, and the creation of a democratic society. I see myself as a typical product of Western individualism. Even though I was born in Hong Kong, I received a Western education. I embraced Western individualism for as long as I knew. In the realm of mental health, Western psychology has made significant contributions, focusing on self-understanding, personal growth, and individual therapy. It encourages self-expression, self-awareness, and the pursuit of personal happiness. But like all philosophies, individualism has its challenges. In emphasizing the self, we do sometimes lose sight of our connection to others and the world around us. This is where the wisdom of the East comes into play, offering a contemporary perspective. In today's globalized society, the question of who am I becomes even more nuanced. We are influenced by multiple cultures, philosophies, and technologies. We are connected like never before, yet we also face unprecedented challenges in understanding our unique place in the world. Let's explore how the wisdom of the past can illuminate our path forward. First, consider the influence of technology on our sense of self. In an age of social media and constant connectivity, our identity is often shaped by how others perceive us online. We create our digital selves, presenting an image that may or may not reflect our true selves. How does this align with the ancient teachings of no self or the interdependence of all things? In Buddhism, the concept of anatta invites us to see beyond the superficial, to recognize that our true essence is not fixed or confined to a single identity. It teaches us to be authentic, to be present, to connect genuinely with others. Perhaps in a world obsessed with likes and followers, this ancient wisdom offers a grounding perspective. Now, we must consider the environmental crisis that defines our era. The teachings of indigenous cultures, which emphasize our deep connection to the land, have never been more relevant. How might we learn from these ancient perspectives to foster a more harmonious relationship with the earth? From Native American stewardship to Aboriginal Dreamtime, these traditions invite us to honor the natural world not as a resource to exploit, but as a living entity to respect. They remind us that we are part of the earth, not separate from it. In a time of climate urgency, this understanding can guide our actions and decisions. What about the complexities of modern relationships and community? In a world where many feel isolated and disconnected, the Eastern philosophy of interdependence provides a valuable lesson. Whether it is the familial bonds emphasized in many Asian cultures or the universal connection described in Hinduism, these teachings remind us that we are never truly alone. We are part of a human family, interdependent ways both seen and unseen. This awareness can lead to a more compassionate, empathetic approach to others, transcending barriers of race, culture, or beliefs. Finally, let's contemplate the challenges of mental health in the modern age. The mindfulness practices rooted in Buddhism, the balance sought in Taoism, the wholeness envisioned in indigenous healing. All these ancient tools are now being rediscovered and embraced in contemporary therapy and wellness. Our ancestors understood something essential about the human psyche, something that we are only now beginning to appreciate. The integration of these ancient practices into modern mental health care is a testament to their timeless wisdom and relevance. As we navigate the challenges and joys of our lives, let's remember that we are not isolated entities, but part of a magnificent tapestry of existence. Let's embrace both the individuality that makes us unique and the interdependence that binds us together. Now, consider how these opposing philosophies can actually work in harmony. Western individualism fosters personal growth, while Eastern interdependence nurtures community growth. Together, they offer a holistic view of the self and society. Consider how modern mental health practices are blending individual therapy with mindfulness and community support, integrating Western approaches to create more comprehensive healing. So here we are, my dear listeners, standing at the intersection of the ancient and the contemporary, recognizing the value in both individualism and interdependence. These contrasting philosophies are not mutually exclusive, but offer complementary insights into who we are and how we relate to the world. We find ourselves in a world that is both astonishingly complex and beautifully simple. The wisdom of the past still resonates, still guides, still inspires. Thank you for being here on the iSquared podcast. Stay tuned as we continue to explore the rich layers of human experience. After the break, we will explore the great philosophical divide between interdependence and individualism, in the hope to spark a dialogue, a conversation that might one day lead to mutual understanding. Welcome back, my dear listeners. After contemplating the complexities and contrasts between Eastern and Western philosophies of self, we now embark on an optimistic journey to try to bridge the gap. Can these seemingly divergent perspectives come together to enrich our understanding of the world and of ourselves? Let's explore deeper. In a world increasingly defined by its divisions, the value of cross-cultural understanding, empathy, and collaboration cannot be overstated. It is time to look beyond the binary and seek harmony. Let's explore the world of technology and ethics, a sphere where East and West have often found themselves at odds. In the West, the drive for innovation, individualism, and market dominance has led to incredible technological advancements. This ethos has propelled companies like Apple, Google, and Tesla to global success. But what about the societal implications, the ethical considerations? In Eastern philosophies, there is a strong emphasis on balance, harmony, and the greater good. How does this reconcile with the relentless pursuit of technological supremacy? Now consider the debate around artificial intelligence, AI. In the West, there is now a race to develop AI, driven by economic interests, competition, and individual brilliance. But in the East, countries like Japan and China are grappling with the questions about the role of AI in society, the balance between human and machine, the potential loss of jobs, and the moral implications of creating machine intelligence. Is it about technological triumph at any cost, or is there a need to pause, reflect, and consider the broader societal impact? Interestingly, this debate has led to global dialogues, think tanks, and even regulatory bodies that strive to balance these diverging viewpoints. It is a fusion of the Western drive for individual success and innovation with the Eastern concern for the collective harmony and ethical reflections. This ongoing conversation is not without controversy, tension, and disagreement, but is also a rich opportunity for cultural learning, for bridging the gap between contrasting philosophies, and perhaps finding a more holistic, thoughtful approach to one of the most pressing issues of our time. Let's consider the blossoming industry of integrative medicine. In this innovative approach to healing, we find a remarkable fusion of Western scientific rigor and Eastern holistic wisdom. Doctors and healers around the world are now recognizing that the body and mind are not isolated entities, but parts of an interdependent system. By incorporating practices like acupuncture, yoga, mindfulness meditation, integrative medicine doesn't just treat symptoms, it addresses the underlying causes of illnesses, promoting overall wellness. The emphasis on prevention and the alignment of body and mind reflect Eastern philosophies, while the use of modern medical technology and evidence-based practices show the strengths of Western science. This synthesis of Eastern and Western perspectives is not merely a blending of traditions, it is a forward-looking, innovative approach that recognizes the intrinsic value in both. In integrative medicine, we find a model of how diverse philosophies can come together to create more effective, compassionate, and holistic solutions, enhancing the quality of life for people around the world. But how can we, as individuals, engage with these different perspectives? How can we contribute to this bridging of cultures? First, we must be willing to listen, to learn, to empathize. Engage with art, literature, and music from different cultures. Explore philosophies that challenge your worldview. Participate in cultural exchange programs, or simply make a friend from a different background. Don't underestimate the power of food. Sharing a meal from someone from a different culture can be a delightful and eye-opening experience, opening doors to conversation and connection. And perhaps most importantly, we must recognize the humanity and the infinite common ancestry we share with one another. We must look beyond the stereotypes and biases that so often divide us. It is too easy to forget that all 8 billion of us, we all share the same basic need. We all share the same humanity. We must not allow ourselves to be defined by our differences. Dear listeners, our world is beautifully complex, and our diversity is a source of strength, not division. By seeking to bridge the gap between East and West, by embracing empathy, curiosity, and collaboration, we can build a richer, more compassionate, more connected world. Thank you for tuning in to the iSquared podcast, where Who Am I and identity takes the central stage today. As we continue to navigate the complexities of identity and culture, please do so with open hearts and open minds. As we come to the close of this enlightening journey through contrasting philosophies of self and identity, let's take a moment to reflect on what we have uncovered together. We have explored the individualism and autonomy prevalent in Western thought, recognizing its vital role in fostering innovation, personal success, and freedom. It is a perspective that empowers us, challenges us, and pushes us to achieve our unique potential. Yet, we have also traveled to the East, where we have encountered teachings of interdependence, harmony, and fluidity. These philosophies challenge us to see beyond our individual egos and recognize our connections to others, to the environment, and to the universe itself. From the provocative debates surrounding technology and ethics to the growing integration of mindfulness in medicine, we have seen examples of how these philosophies can collide, clash, but also enrich each other. We have witnessed the value of cross-cultural understanding, empathy, and collaboration. So, my dear listeners, what does this mean for you? I challenge you to reflect on your own identity, on how the philosophies we have discussed resonate with your life, your beliefs, and your actions. How do you balance the drive for individual success with a sense of responsibility to others and the world around you? These questions are not just theoretical, they influence how we live, how we interact with others, and how we shape our infinite collective futures. I encourage you to engage with these ideas, to share your thoughts and reflections with friends, family, and even right here in the comments. Your voice is a valuable part of this ongoing dialogue. This episode is just the beginning of a conversation, one that I hope you will continue to explore, debate, and grow from. Do not shy away from the complexity and diversity of these insights, but embrace them as opportunities to learn, to connect, to be a better person. If you have found value in today's episode, please share it with others who may be interested. Subscribe to the iSquared podcast, and don't hesitate to leave your thoughts and reflections. Your engagement helps us to continue explore these vital questions. Thank you for joining me, Jimmy Lau, on this profound exploration of self and identity. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, never stop questioning. May your days be filled with wonders and happiness, and may you dance in the symphony of impermanence.